Hi everyone, welcome to the Self-Knowledge Lectures. As every Sunday, we are having our Phase B lectures, and today we are going to see the lecture number 16 of this set of 25 lectures that are the Phase B of the Self-Knowledge course. We are having our Phase B lectures every Sundays at the same time, 3 p.m. CST time. And we are having our Phase A lectures every Wednesdays and Fridays, okay? And well, today we are having this very interesting topic. Remember that in the previous lecture, we were talking about the ray of creation, a really interesting lecture. And well, the last cosmos that we were seeing was the Tritocosmos. And well, actually, in today's lecture and in our next lecture next Sunday, we are going to be like detailing every one of the subdivisions of the Tritocosmos or the infradimensions. And well, unlike the Phase A lecture, the lecture number 9 of the Phase A, in which we saw the infradimensions of our inner world, the infradimensions that we have in our low abdomen that are actually, they have the exact same subdivision but they are in our inner world, because as without, so within. Today we are going to be seeing the infradimensions but of the planet Earth. So today we will be talking about the process that the spark goes through every time that it exhausts the 180 opportunities that it has with human physical body in each of the 3,000 cycles, but without designing in one of those existences to awaken its consciousness and to do the work of eliminating all of its psychological defects, in which all the wisdom of that turn in the wheel of samsara is trapped. And well, didn't decide also to create these essential bodies of the being through the supersexuality in order to have a presence in the superior dimensions. Since we have 3,000 cycles of manifestation, well, this means that, well, please allow me just 1 second, I'm sorry. And, well, just 1 second. Let me check something here. Just a moment. Well, as I was saying, we all have 3,000 cycles of manifestation, and this means that unless we decide to awaken our consciousness and achieve the self-realization, we will have to pass through this involution process through the infradimensions of planet Earth 3,000 times before returning to the absolute as a failed spark, only with the 3% of consciousness, just as we went down. This involutionary process or passage through the infradimensions of the planet Earth is a totally necessary step in the wheel of samsara. We have the evolution and then the involution, and it is a liberating process. This is known as the second death. And in this process, the spark, up to that point of ending its 108 existences, due to the constant creation of so many psychological defects, if it doesn't voluntarily do the work to free itself from the ego, well, the ego is going to lead that spark to the lowest levels of degeneration and to lose even this lightless spiritual aspiration, plunging it completely into materialism and perversity. So for this reason, this limit is set, in which by a mechanical law, which is the law of involution, nature takes charge of the liberation of all these essences. You know that 97% of our essence is trapped in the ego, and in which the nature is going to do so during this hard passage through the 9 circles in which these infra dimensions are divided. And in each of these circles that you can like see here, certain specific types of eyes are going to be purged or eliminated. Pain, in turn, with pain, all the karma that each of them has generated, until at the end of this process of purification, the completely clean spark comes out with the 3% of consciousness and 97% of innocence or catchable essence, there to start a new turn in the wheel, a new opportunity to create a soul. And when reaching the point the human kingdom, can have the opportunity to awaken consciousness and do all the work to know himself and to become a god. Well, in this step through the involutionary process, the spark physically goes through different bodies of involutionary animals, then involutionary plants, and finally involutionary minerals, as we started in the phase A lecture, well, the number 8, where we were talking about the laws of evolution and involution, remember? While the contaminated essence or the psyche is going through each of these 9 circles that are known as the 9 circles of Dante, or Dante's circles, or the Dante's Inferno. Since Master Dante Alighieri, who was actually an initiate who achieved the self-realization, well, in his Divine Comedy, he recounted what he actually experienced, guided by his guru, named Virgilio, who showed him how it's a process that the different selves go through in involution in the bowels of the planet. So all of us should actually do this investigation, should in a conscious astral projection investigate or ask our inner being to show us what is the infradimensions, because it's important that we make ourselves aware of all of this process. And well, we are going to study today each of these circles. Well, we are going to study today first, second, third, fourth, and the 5th circle. And the rest of them, 6, 7, 8, and 9, we are going to see them in the next lecture. Okay? And well, we are going to study this so that we understand this process. And hopefully, this study will help us to reflect on the importance of deciding to voluntarily eliminate these psychological defects. Now that we have the tools, right, to pay our karmas, now that we have the tools, and self-realize our being, and not having to go once again through this whole process, because this is another interesting conscious investigation that we can do in a conscious astral projection. How many times we have turned in the wheel? Probably there are many of us who have turned the wheel more than 1,000 times. That means that we have gone through this process of involution more than 1,000 times. And well, I think that this time that we have, well, the knowledge and that we can like understand it, that we can like process all this information, we make the decision to start working ourselves, to start knowing ourselves, so we don't lose our consciousness and go through this process, through this mechanical process once again. Okay, so let's start seeing each one of the circles. Remember that in each one, a certain type of psychological selves are going to be eliminated with pain, okay? And well, the first of the Dante's circles is the submerged sphere of the moon. And this circle is subject to 96 laws. Remember that here in the 3rd dimension, we are under 48 laws. Laws are limitations, the more the amount of loss, the more the materiality, the more the pain, and the more the suffering. And here we double the amount of loss than here in the third dimension. We are here under 96 loss. And this region is called limbo, or the hole of hell. And it belongs actually to the second dimension. And it is formed by all the caves of the planet united astrally. In this circle are all the disembodied who have not exhausted their 108 existences yet. That means that if you die, anyone dies, they go to limbo to wait for their next existence if they haven't exhausted their 108 opportunities. And here in limbo, they recap the existence that has just passed while they wait for their next return. Actually, all the inhabitants of this region continue doing the same things that they did in the physical world. Everyone there walks with their consciousness asleep, projecting everything that they were living. The person who were like, let's say, a carpenter, he dies and he continues in limbo, projecting all his life, his work. He continued there with his wood and stuff. A housekeeper continued there doing the same thing. That is what we do. The same that we do every night, where we go to sleep and we go to limbo. We are going to see now why. And we are there just projecting our lives, we continue in our house, we continue having our kids, going to work, and projecting all of our desires unconsciously there. We do the same when we die. The only difference with sleeping, dying and sleeping is almost exactly the same thing. We go to the same place. The only difference is that when you die, the silver cord, that is the one that makes you return to your physical body every morning, it's going to be caught. So you're going to remain there waiting for a next physical body, okay? So it's exactly the same process, okay? You continue there doing the same things. But also something interesting to know is that here in limbo, we also find all the incarnated human beings. The ones that are still alive, but who don't possess yet their solar bodies. That means that when we go to sleep, we go to limbo, or to what is known as the low astral, or the lunar astral, okay? Since in this circle are all those who have not been baptized. Remember that in the lecture 9 of the phase V, we were talking about what is true baptism. And we were talking that we achieve baptism when we managed to finish our first initiation of major mysteries. That is, that we managed to bring all of our internal waters, that are our sexual energy, our semen, to feel the 33 vertebrae of the spinal column of the physical body. And when the water reaches the head, there we start the process of baptism. And there you're going to receive an Anki, or Ank cross, or what is your name of that cross? Tau, the Tau cross. And that means that you have already been baptized, and that means that now your consciousness is going to be taken out from limbo to go up to the third dimension. Because right now, because we haven't been baptized yet, we all belong to this dimension, and we all move there every time that we go to sleep. And here we find all those sincerely mistaken people who believed that liberation was possible without the need for sexual magic. This is the circle of the lazy, because laziness is the one that doesn't allow us to start creating, that doesn't allow us to start, working on ourselves, eliminating our psychological defects, practicing the suprasexuality. We better prefer to believe to take these informations as theories, as concepts, or we set to believe that just because any other master has done this, and people say that because he did so, we are going to be saved, and we don't have to do anything else, and believing that he is the one and trying to be good. Well, that type of laziness is the one that subject us to this first infradimension or first Dante circle. So here we find all human beings who didn't transmute their seminal waters. And that is the first circle. And well, the second of the Dante circles is a submerged sphere of Mercury. And this circle is subject to double the loss than the previous one. Here we find 192 loss. There we feel the hurricane wind of Mercury, which is a certain fatal air element. And we find here the perpetual boiling of those negative passionate forces, which originate the astral tides, or all of that instinctive lust is moves there. And in this region, the human understanding doesn't work, since everyone here is driven by their instinctive fornicating urges. So here we find, or here we're going to purge all of our fornicating selves. This is the world of brutal instincts. Here, lasciviousness is mixed with violence. So here, every one of these condemned, let's call it like that, are fornicating every time. And what you are going to do, what the selves are going to do in each one of their circles is that they are going to be doing that what they live for, in this case, fornicating, once and again, and once and again, until they don't want to do that anymore, and they are going to be forced to continue doing so. They are going to be eliminated in their own law, until they become their pleasure a pain, and the pain a pleasure, and they are set just to all limits that the self explodes and the essence is liberated, but without wisdom, because it is something that is done involuntarily. Okay, so here we find all of ourselves who enjoy extracting our sacred sperm from our organism. And well, they cohabit incessantly, and they hate to death everything that tastes like chastity. Here we find millions of human creatures that live here with this conda buffer organ, which is that the tail, like the tail that the demons have. Yeah, the same. Yet there it is like fully developed. Okay, and those who enter this circle have no possibility of return. Only those who have exhausted their opportunities with a human physical body, there are 108 opportunities in the circle, enter here. Although from time to time, although the truth is very rarely that this happens, but it happens, the master who work here, because several masters of the White Lodge work there trying to help people, such as, for example, Master Judas from Cariot. The same one that was in the Christic, the cosmic drama, the cosmic drama that Master Jesus represented. That Master Judas works there in hell, in that circle. And these masters, from time to time, can help those who truly, sincerely repent. Those who at that point manage to understand that they have erred and awaken in themselves a longing, for being. And they are helped, and by mercy, the masters give them a new opportunity with a human physical body to try their self-realization. But this is like really very rare, since those who pass into that circle usually go, like self-concerning themselves, or blaspheming against divinity, but never ever like self-questioning or judging themselves, because if they do so, they actually don't go there. But they are there because They are like fornicator, like irredentor's fornicator. And well, in addition to that, in that circle, they immerse themselves in their fornicating instincts, and the fornication and lust are the foundation of all the ego that exists. And well, that is the second Dante circles. The third one is the submerged sphere of Venus, and this circle is subject to 384 laws. So here is like more less space and more materiality and a lot of pain. And there is incessant rain, terrible cold, mud, sewage, waters, rot, etc. This is a very terrible circle. And pleasure moves in the circle. So here we find canteens, cabarets, brothels, orgies, and bacchanalia. And all this is found in the submerged sphere of Venus. Those who have lived, from orgy to orgy, from bar to bar, submerging the mud of those great feasts, banquets, and drunkenness, know very well what it is feel like after a night of partying. Well, actually, that exactly is what if lived in the whole time in this sphere of Venus. Many wanting to drown in wine their disastrous state in which they remain after a night of party, continue along the path of vice until they reach like the total catastrophe of their organism, because after pleasure comes pain. So here the pain that is lived is something like real terrible. And well, in this region, the deceased listen with horror to the terrifying barking of Cerberus, which is the infernal dog. And this symbolic dog, with its three cruel jaws, represent the violent sexual animal passions out of all control. And here in this circle, it is said that when some of these selves or persons try like to run away from this, is like swallowed by this three-headed dog, and again they like the dog like devolve it, and well, it is something like really terrible what is being lived in this region. And well, the pleasures of old Rome turned into like fatal results. All the feasts, all the adulterers, the lesbians, the poets of, like the degenerate, the proud lords of great feast are found there. This is the home to gluttons, to drunkards, to drug addicts, because we find here all kind of vices, and all of the sexual pleasures. And well, now in this circle, only the pestilence of the underground world of Venus is what is left. After all the pleasures, only tears remain. And these tears are symbolized by the constant rain of that horrible region, those pestilential waters of bitterness, and the horrible mud that is constantly there. So that is the third Dante circle. And the fourth one is the submerged sphere of the sun, and this circle is subject to 768 laws. Well, something that is important to know is that the passage through each one of these circles is something very, very, very slow. It's something that can actually take thousands of years. I mean, it's something very slow. It's going to depend on the type of Anasusan that you are. Remember that we studied that in the lecture number 13 of the phase B. But this is terrible, like slow, and the pain make it like seem like if it is something eternal. That is why hell used to be described as eternal pain. Something that is going to be like forever. But actually it is not. At some point the spark goes out from there when it's totally cleaned, when it reaches the last circle, which is the ninth. It goes out to start again a new turn in the wheel. But actually it seems to be, like eternal, because something very terrible. And well, here in the fourth circle, we are in the solar hills of planet Earth, and we find here all the unbalanced with two defined types, the wasteful ones and the greedy ones. Waste is as absurd as greed. Here we learn to remain faithful to the balance, because the violation of balance brings painful karmic consequences. And the prodigal, to wasteful, the one who wastes his money, even though deep down he feels very generous, he is violating the law. And the miser, the one who doesn't circulate his money, the one who selfishly withholds, beyond what is like normal, is also harming the community. It is taking away bread from many people, impoverishing his fellow men. And for this reason, he is also violating the law of balance. And well, although the spendthrift apparently does well by circulating money intensively, it is logical that he produces imbalance not only in himself but also with the general movement of values. And this, in the long run, causes like tremendous economic damages to people. And well, that all of that is paid here in this circle. And well, wonders and misers, both of them become beggars. And well, this is proven, and this is why it is being lived here. So it is urgent that we learn to cooperate with the law of the eternal trogo auto-egocratic cosmic common. Not hinder the economic balance, not harm yourselves, and not harm others. And well, in this circle, the prodigal and the misers, they blaspheme against the divinity, they curse, they fight each other because they are like forced to be carrying this, how can I call them? This like bags, enormous bags full of things that are actually pieces. And well, it is said that they weigh as rocks, and they are like forced to take this to a long run with this, and this represented all this money that they, or the material things that they waste, or that they how can I say, that they like keep for themselves in life. And they fight for these things, and they plunge into terrifying despair, and this is what is being lived here. And here we also find all the exploiters of bodies and of souls, because we find here the lottery, dice, and card players, and not only the players, but the ones that that create that, that have houses of selling lottery, of casino, etc. And here we also find the priests, and that kind of people, mystics, who insatiable covet the good of others. So they are exploiters of bodies and also of souls. And we find all of this here. The important thing is that we understand that we all have these defects. We all have laziness and a lot of details of laziness. We all have fornication and a lot of details of fornication. We all have these defects that are there in Venus, the ones of pleasure and pain, that lives by giving pleasure to themselves, and by feeling pain, by, we actually have made of pleasure and pain. And we need to see all of those vices and lust, etc. And we need to know that we all have this imbalance within ourselves. So it's important that we start understanding this, to see what is really going to take us to these very low levels of consciousness. Because remember that dimensions are levels of consciousness, and these are like the lowest levels of consciousness of them all. And well, the last circle that we are going to see today is the fifth Dante circle, which is the submerged sphere of Mars. And this circle is subject to 1,536 law. And well, it is evident that this fifth submerged region is much coarser than the previous ones, so the suffering is greater there. In this circle, the ironic, the furious, the arrogant, and the proud people stand out. Murderers, violence, destroyers, blasphemers, people who hate and revenge. All of those self-considered people and people who mutually hurt each other are there. And what is even funny to see is that all of these people believe that they are doing very well. And no one supposed, even for an instant, that they are walking along the path of darkness and horror and that things are going badly. No, they actually feel holy and virtuous. Let me tell you that until that point, the essence haven't realized that is in hell. Actually, is from this point on and on that the sparks start making aware that is in hell, that asleep is the consciousness, and that used to live by all of these pleasures and pain that our ego, all those hard situations that the ego make us live in life. We are so used to this type of life that we actually are in hell, and we don't realize it. We continue just living, suffering stuff without making ourselves aware that something bad is going on. We at that point are still considering ourselves, believing ourselves to be good, and thinking that we are victims, and thinking that if everything is going wrong is because of the government or because of God or because of anyone else but not ourselves. But let me tell you that from this circle and on, the things get so tough that the spark needs to awaken to the fact that it's already in hell. Because here in this circle, some desperate eyes flee from others that are attacking them. Because here we find the anger and all the aspects of the anger. Remember that the anger have the violence and the fear. So we have those two extremes fighting here of the same ego, because the eyes that are fleeing from the attacking ones are all parts of the same ego. So each one of the parties flee without consolation, terrified, trying to hide from each of the other parties that are parts of the same ego, and nothing pleasant is for the deceased. Maybe you could find pleasure in the past circles. For example, in laziness, you can find pleasure at some point. In the fornication, you find a lot of pleasure, right? In Venus, with the vices, with the drugs, with the music and all of that you find in Venus, there you find pleasure. But here in this circle, well, there is nothing pleasant. And well, the consciousness of the deceased in this fifth circle comes to know their own weakness, their own horrors, their violence, their anger. And consciousness tries to flee from itself, from those horrifying and violent monsters that are actually parts of himself. So in this infradimension of our planet Earth, it turns out that consciousness faces itself, know itself, looking at itself with many eyes from different angles according to each of its selves. So it is actually a process of awakening that these 3% have here, and is already knowing there all of its perversity, but now it's too late. There is nothing that can be done but going down until reaching the last circle to go up totally clean. And well, actually wallowing in so much mud, fleeing from oneself, feeling terrified of oneself, the I confronted with the I, parts of myself confronted with myself, is certainly like the horrors of horrors, the unspeakable, the terror that has no word to be described. And this is the fifth Dante circles. And well, these are the ones that we are going to be seeing today. Next Sunday, we are going to be seeing the last four circles to study what happens in the next one. And well, the invitation that the masters that have left this information available for us is for us to fully understand that each one of these selves, of these devil selves, carries within it certain well-defined percentage of our unconsciousness. And that if we do the work of liberating our essence to understanding that we all have all these effects within ourselves, here and now, and we start the work of eliminating them and freeing our consciousness voluntarily, we are going to be rescue a lot of wisdom that is trapped within each one of these negative ways of being, because we created them to get to achieve wisdom at some point. And we need to do this work voluntarily to awaken our consciousness and stop passing by this process of involution, self-realizing ourselves, okay? So, well, this has been today's lecture. This is all the information that I'm going to share with you today. And in next Sunday, we are going to continue studying this interesting topic. Well, I want to say hi to Bampi Niblo, who is here. Hi, Bampi, how are you? And well, if you have any questions, remember you can leave your questions there, and I will be gladly solving any concern that you have. And if you want to also, you can write me or contact me through the messenger of the page, and I will be gladly assisting you with anything that I can, okay? So, thank you very much to all of you. Have a good rest of the day, and see you the next time. Ciao, ciao.